It's time now to review newspaper headlines from across the country. And of course, we are going to start with this day on Saturday, the newspaper of record.
The newspaper of record. Okay, only two stories on the cover of this day today. Three actually. The window story, the second lead, and the stripe story at the bottom. The window story is on a good note, and it says Cardoso, foreign capital inflows rise by 70% to $20.98 billion in October. That's the governor of the central bank yesterday. He made this disclosure, basically to show that foreign capital inflow in Nigeria surged to $20.98 billion in the first 10 months of 2025, which is not a bad one at all, given the usefulness of foreign inflow into Nigeria. And in 10 months at more than $20 billion, that is significant.
It is significant. I always say, shout out to Cardi B, like I say. No, but one thing that we can see is the proof is in the pudding when it comes to Cardoso's work. You can see the numbers reflecting the policies and the actions that he has taken there at the central bank. So I do think that we must give credit where credit is due.
In this instance, absolutely.
And especially because of the knock-on effects it will have. This is coming before Dirty December. This is, helping to stabilize our foreign exchange. This is positive news when we need.
It also means that December will be a lot significant too, given the influx that we are expecting.
Definitely.
That's a good one. That story is on page 5. So is the next story. Good luck, Jonathan. Guinea-Bissau's ousted president, Mbalo, masterminded ceremonial coup.
Yes.
Ceremonial coup in quote. That's also on page 5. We had a little discussion earlier. We couldn't take this story. We couldn't take this story during the week that was, but here we have it on the cover of this day on Saturday, as I, of course, expect that it will be, hopefully in a few other newspapers too.
Definitely.
A former president of Nigeria, and I believe he's the chair or he's just a member of the West African Elders Forum, who was in Guinea-Bissau's capital for the elections, returning safely and saying categorically that what he witnessed, what he saw, was not a coup, and that it looks to him like Mbalo masterminded, this whole charade, that the army in Guinea-Bissau are claiming they had to intervene because they suspected that a drug baron was going to influence the outcome of the elections, which is as crazy, as interesting as it could be, given the long history of Guinea-Bissau as the narco country that UN and the US, termed them as about 10 years ago. I remember in 2012, and President Jonathan also made reference to it, that even Nigeria, a few other countries had to intervene, which is why I said earlier that I hope our president will show some interest beyond the meeting that ECOWAS has had, removing Guinea-Bissau, from the ECOWAS committee, because this is the first African country that President Tinubu visited when he became president in July of 2023, and then visited on the invitation of this same Mbalo to be part of the celebration of the 50th anniversary of the country. How will our president be feeling now that they are saying that, the same president that he honored barely exactly 2 years ago, actually, is the mastermind of this phantom coup?
Yes, just going off of what you said, going off of what Good Luck Jonathan said, the Senegalese Prime Minister Ousmane Sonko also termed the coup as a scheme and said that it is not right.
A scheme?
Yes, a scheme. Now,
isn't Mbalo in Senegal now?
Yes, he is in Senegal. But his close friends and associates are the ones who are currently running this government. Now, the person who announced the coup is a former military aide of Mbalo, and Vieira Tay, who's the new prime minister,
was of the chief of staff or something like
his
that.
Presidential campaign and his finance minister before the coup. So it's either a very peaceful palace coup, or it is a situation where either it's a palace coup or, as Goodluck Jonathan has said, as the Prime Minister of Senegal has said, that Embalo has masterminded a ceremonial coup to prevent his election being declared a loss. Of course, he was fighting
to prevent the opponent from emerging as the president, who from reports possibly won about 52%, reportedly, of the votes cast.
Of course, they had not announced the results before this happened, but we have to also position Guinea-Bissau, as I said before, in this Sahel belt of coups. We saw what happened in Niger, we saw what happened in Mali, saw what happened in Burkina Faso. Of course, Guinea-Bissau does have its own tense history.
Guinea itself, as a country, not Guinea-Bissau, Guinea is also under military rule, isn't it?
Yes. And but I think he's now changed to president, or it's on his way to yes. But Guinea-Bissau has its own specific history with coups, and so therefore we have to position it in that this is our neighborhood in West Africa. This is our neighborhood here in West Africa, and it's something that we should possibly be worried about, but especially not just in terms of it being a coup, but also the weakening of democracy, the weakening of the democratic spirit, and seems people who are refusing to let go of power. We're going to see Uganda's President Museveni run again for re-election in a couple of weeks, January 15th there. We have so many leaders across the continent who are holding on to power, regardless, it seems, of what their people want.
I do agree with you, Adesua, but I think that a closer look, should be on Guinea-Bissau, not just because, it is yet another coup, but it is because this is a ceremonial coup, as President Jonathan has said, a president, trying to step aside for 1 year, but of course installing, allegedly, his own people there. And given the funny history of Guinea-Bissau as the gateway drug channel from between between Latin America to Europe, attention should be on it so that we're not inadvertently supporting drug barons who are taking over government in the name of a coup. One more story before the important cover advert on the front page of this day today. The story on page 8, which is promoted on cover, it says Army promotes 105 officers to Major General, Brigadier General ranks. It looks, of course, that the Army will need to fill a lot of positions that have remained vacant over time. And of course, the advert on the cover of this day is about the federal court issuing orders restraining police from Drug-Hogs Abuja and Lagos properties, including Nestor Tower. That's what we have on the cover of this day today. Should we look at the Punch and a few other papers?
Before we go, because yes, of course, there's a court order there restraining police from Nest Oil properties, to Nest Oil properties, I believe it is. I think we're going to continue to see some of these things happening, but hopefully the restraint here is firmer than it is in the Inugu case that we were just discussing. When we look into this day, we have two stories there. Our chairman, Unukabi Abena, paying his respects to in Delta State, paying his last respects in Delta State there. But we also have the funeral plans, burial plans for Olusegun Awolowo Jr., who died recently. He lived from 1963 to 2025, and the family has announced his funeral plans there in this day. Of course, there are some other stories there that we can't see on the front page, like Malami's engagement with EFCC, but I think we should move on to our next newspaper now.
All right. Should we look at the Punch? Okay. All right. The cover for the Punch, the lead story there says DHQ summons grills soldiers in Abuja. And the riders, how military opted for negotiation after failed rescue. Attacks won't stop our children from returning to school. Those are victims' parents speaking there. And then there's a story just by the window of the Punch. It says, U.S. lawyer raped me at Bar Association conference. Ex-American judge Ademi Louis. And then we have the story of Burna Boy. Burna Boy faces fan fury, pulls plug on U.S. tour. It looks like Burna Boy is about to come to some form of reckoning,
with his incessant bad behavior and mistreatment of his fans and looking down on the Nigerian people and non-appreciation for that people are spending their hard-earned money on his show. It can't happen to a better person, I would say. A reckoning indeed. Now, before we move on, because we have been speaking a lot about this insecurity and was ransom paid? What does a negotiation mean?
Yes.
What does it mean for our military to be negotiating with terrorists? And importantly, on the Punch, that it has the former president Olusegun Obasanjo saying, "Stop apologizing and negotiating with terrorists." And of course, the deputy speaker Benjamin Kalu said the same thing on the floor. We cannot be negotiating with people who are taking our children. We should not be negotiating with terrorists. Time and time again, as you said, it seems that we're singing the same chorus. However, that chorus we're singing does not seem to necessarily be making it to our armed forces.
All right, can we take a look at The Guardian very quickly? As Yuletide beckons, the lead story says, with its kicker, motorists, commuters agonize over deplorable interstate roads. This is an important story given the fact that we just had, somebody from aviation, telling us that, and you did raise the question about what is the percentage of people who will be flying anyway. So The Guardian is focusing on the state of deplorable interstate roads and how motorists and commuters are agonizing.
Honestly,
and I think that's an important thing to look at.
It's incredibly important because people are worried about their safety, one, from the actual roads itself, two, from the state of the motor vehicles that are transporting them across state lines, three, from the fear of banditry and terrorists and kidnappings, and four, from the fear of robberies. This is a time where people are supposed to be excited to be able to reconnect with their families, their communities, and yet there's a lot of anxiety and fear from different tiers of failure, from infrastructure to lack of authorities making sure that motor vehicles are roadworthy, to the trucks on the road, to insecurity. Sometimes you just wonder, when will Nigerians get a break?
When will Nigerians get a break? Like now, like yesterday, we do need a break. The next story is also on the cover of The Guardian on the window, but we won't have time to look in detail at what has been said there. But of course, it's about the concern for Nigeria's oil security integrity. Last week, we had two gentlemen from Nestor, come discuss issues affecting them. But we'll see how that goes.